Hello and welcome to the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Training video series. My name is Chris Moon. I am an associate teaching professor at Iowa State University in the Ivy College of Business Department of Accounting. This video is going to focus on the process that we go through when a client comes in and the training that's required before that process begins. As you can see from the top of this screen, I am in publication 5166 right now, which is the VITA TCE Volunteer Quality Site Requirements. And it's important that we know what each one of these are and that we're following them because number one, there are requirements associated with maintaining our VITA sites, but also there are site reviews that are conducted by the spec agents throughout the course of the tax season, just to make sure that everything is going as it should and that we're following all of the quality site requirements. So you can see that there are 10 quality site requirements: certification, intake interview quality review process, photo ID and taxpayer identification numbers, reference materials, volunteer agreement, timely filing, civil rights, correct site identification number, correct electronic filing identification number, and security. So we are going to go through each one of those today. This training is particularly important for the coordinators because they are the ones who want to ensure that each one of these things is accurate and going on as it should, but also other volunteers may find this information to be helpful so that they can assist the coordinators in making sure that everything is in line with the rules. Okay, so certification. Volunteers must do all of their certification through the Lincoln Learn Taxes website. Your coordinator should have provided you with a link to that site. Sometimes there are test booklets that are available in writing, but you have to actually submit your answers on the Lincoln Learn website to be able to get certified. You can do the classroom training in person. I do have several videos that can assist you with your training that you can watch, or you can self-study, or you can use Lincoln Learn. The Lincoln Learn website has a lot of videos and other resources available to you. It's important to note that you only get 2 attempts to pass each one of the certifications, that you must have a passing score of 80% on your certification. New volunteers must take the Volunteer Standards of Conduct training, and you have to actually pass that test by 80% to be a volunteer. All new and returning volunteer instructors, preparers, coordinators, and quality reviewers must take Publication 5101, VITA TCE Intake Interview and Quality Review Training, and pass that certification. Volunteer greeters, screeners, and client facilitators who assist with completing Form 13614C, which is the Intake Interview and Quality Review Sheet, must also take the Intake Interview and Quality Review Training and get certified through that training. We talked about, I showed you that chart in one of the previous trainings on what you need for that. Okay, if you are a tax law instructor, you must certify in tax law at the advanced level or higher. If you have IRS tax law certified volunteer preparers, they can only prepare returns with tax issues that fall within their certification level. So most of the sites probably will go ahead and have you get certified at the advanced level, but if you've only certified at the basic level, then you can only handle returns that are within that basic level. If they have something, let's say itemized deductions or something like that above the basic level, you will not be able to handle that return. New this year, over-the-phone interpreter certification is available. Volunteers must certify in Volunteer Standards of Conduct before taking that certification. There is a federal tax law update test for Circular 230 professionals. So that is a tax law certification that allows volunteers who have professional designation of attorney, CPA, or enrolled agent to certify on new provisions and tax law changes. All right. Let's move on to make sure on page 6 you take a look at the required training for volunteer positions, especially for the coordinator. Make sure you know what each of your volunteers are going to be doing and make sure that they've got the appropriate certification, just to make sure that we're in line with the appropriate rules here. Okay. All coordinators, return preparers, quality reviewers, and instructors must take intake and interview and quality review process training and pass that certification. New this year, publication 5838, which is the intake interview and quality review handbook, is a key resource for volunteers on how to conduct effective intake interview and quality review of tax returns. So that's going to be helpful for those of us that have done this before. All sites must use Form 13614C. This is the intake, interview, and quality review sheet. Every client needs to fill this out in its entirety before their tax return is done, and you need to go over that form with the client to make sure. Sometimes the client will not know the answer to some of the questions on this form, so it's really important that you are getting yes or no questions. If they've marked unsure on anything, that you are going over that with the taxpayer, explaining to them what it is so that you can get an appropriate yes or no question. Okay, the intake process requires volunteers to do each of these things, and I'll tell you when they come to do your site review, they are asking these questions. If you're going through each of these things, are you grading the taxpayer? Are you explaining the process, including intake, interview, and quality review? Are you encouraging the taxpayer to ask questions? Ensuring that the taxpayer has everything needed to prepare the return. This is something we do before the taxpayer even enters the room to get their tax return prepared. The intake interview person out front, the greeter, is verifying that they have their photo ID, their social security card, and their all of their tax documents, including their return from last year if they have one, so that we can use that information. The greeter should then provide Form 13614C to the taxpayer and explain to them how to complete the form, answering any questions if they have them as they go through the process. Ensure that the return is within the scope of the program, and then determine the appropriate volunteer certification needed. You know, we have at our site, we have certain things that we see over and over again that are out of scope. And so we have learned just to ask very specific questions of a lot of our taxpayers. Maybe it's because we're at a college site, but at our particular, at the College of Business site at Iowa State, we see a fair amount of people that have traded Bitcoin or other virtual currency, and that is out of scope for VITA. And so we've just learned, we actually ask that question before we make an appointment, and then we ask that question right when they arrive, just to make sure that we don't get 3/4 of the way through the return and have to turn them away. So you may find those things as well, but just making sure that it's within the scope. Have a process for assigning the tax returns to certified volunteers. At my site, at the ISU, in the ISU business building, we have all of our volunteers certified at the advanced level and also the foreign return level. So unless someone comes in who is a military return or something like that, I could assign the return to anyone because they're all certified at the same level. But not everyone has that available to them. Some people may have a couple of people that are certified in military or a couple of people at the advanced level. And so making sure that the greeter knows who those people are and can get it assigned correctly. All right, as you're going through the interview process, it requires the volunteers to do several things. It is very important that the first thing we do is verify the identity of the taxpayer and their spouse if they're married filing jointly. We do have to have a photo ID according to the rules listed in publication 4299, and making sure that that is an appropriate photo ID, that it is an original document, and that it complies with the types of photo IDs that are listed in that publication. We also need to confirm Social Security or tax identification numbers. That, again, is according to the rules in publication 4299. We are able to accept copies of a Social Security card, or we could accept a letter that was issued directly from the Social Security Administration. We need to verify that all questions in Part 1 through 4 are completed. Again, I know I already said this, but if anyone answers unsure to anything, we need to explain that to the taxpayer and make sure that those questions are then answered yes or no before we start preparing that return. We need to exercise due diligence by asking questions to make sure we get sufficient, complete information to be able to prepare the return. And then we need to ask questions and gather information to make sure we use the appropriate filing status and use appropriate dependents for the return. Again, at my site, it's really important a lot of times to make sure that no one else is claiming a student on their return. So I have a lot of students at my site, so I often ask them, are your parents claiming you as a dependent? If they don't know, I ask them to maybe give them a quick text or call so that they can find out if their parents have claimed them or not. We need to review the supporting documentation and make sure that they've got everything they need. One of the items, if they have any educational expenses, or if they've got, if they're in school, make sure you remember to ask for their 1098-T. That's going to show qualified expenditures from qualified institutions, and it's also going to show any scholarship information, that they received throughout the year. Okay, one important item about the 13614C. You can hand that back to the taxpayer after you are done with their return. If your site is a site that keeps that form until the return is accepted, that's fine, except that that needs to be shredded or destroyed by December 31st of that year. So make sure that those get destroyed if your site decides to keep them. All right, every site must use a complete quality review process for the return. So the whoever the taxpayer is that's preparing the return, that return must be reviewed by someone else. And there's a process that you know, each site will go through a different process to do that. But here are some tips and some items to follow as you're going through it. I'll tell you that at our site, we've created our own quality review checklist that we use for our quality reviews, but it's also provided on the 13614C, and there may be another method that you use, but make sure that you're following these guidelines. Engage the taxpayer in that quality review. Make sure that they understand what's in the return. It is up to them what is in the return. Verifying all the items listed in the checklist found in publication 4012 are addressed. Verify that it was prepared using an accurately completed intake form. That you should review all of the supporting documentation and confirm the entries on the return. So go through each W-2, 1099, 1098-T, whatever the forms are, make sure that that information has been entered accurately. If there were any, take another look at the 13614C. Make sure there are no unsure boxes marked on that form. Make sure that if there were any errors, that those were corrected. Review any tax law references that you need to verify the accuracy of the tax law determinations. And this one is really important, to tell the taxpayer before they sign the return that it's their responsibility. The information on the return is their responsibility. And by signing the return, they are taking responsibility for everything that is on there. All right. The site requirement number 3 is confirming photo identification and taxpayer identification numbers. I've already kind of gone over this, but just take a moment to look at publication 4299 to see appropriate photo ID for the taxpayer and appropriate social security number or ITIN verification for the taxpayers. It's really important to make sure that the names are spelled correctly on the tax return. That could result in the tax return being rejected if their names are spelled wrong. Okay, reference materials. All right, all sites must have in either paper or electronic form the following reference materials available for use by the volunteers. At our site, we actually have, a lot of times we'll have paper and electronic versions of the 4012. Publication 17, I usually tell my preparers to have up on a separate window so they can refer back to that. Same with publication 4299. The volunteer tax alerts and the quality site requirement alerts need to be available probably electronically by the taxpayer. So that reference material is important not only to have available, but to use to make sure that we are appropriately applying the tax law. Okay, volunteer agreements. Every volunteer is required to sign a volunteer agreement. This volunteer agreement does indicate what your level of certification is, and once the volunteer signs it, then the coordinator will also sign it, approving that or indicating that the volunteer has met that level of certification, and then those are provided. Those are provided to the spec agent so that they know that those are signed and dated and what the level of certification is. These are available electronically. I'm trying to look through here to see if I see it on here, but they're available electronically to the spec agents in Lincoln Learn. And so it's really important to make sure that your name in Lincoln Learn matches the name that's issued on your government photo ID. All right, number 6, timely filing. This likely will be your coordinator, but it also may be the person who does the quality review of the return. So it is very important that we are timely filing those returns. They need to be done within 3 calendar days after we have all the necessary information to e-file the return. Like I said, at my site, we usually do those the next day. There are some other sites that do them the very day the quality reviewer just goes ahead and e-files that. But whatever your method is, make sure that it is within 3 calendar days of having the necessary information. Retrieve the acknowledgments within 48 hours, if possible, of the transmission. If there are any returns that get rejected, this does happen from time to time, those need to be corrected by a appropriately certified volunteer. Make sure that we get those corrected and resubmitted. If you do have one that's rejected, or if there's a problem in processing it, we need to contact the taxpayer and let them know what the issue is, and maybe get the appropriate information needed from the taxpayer, or just make corrections that we need to make in order to get that resubmitted. Okay, quality site requirement number 7, civil rights. The civil rights information must be available to taxpayers, and you will have provided to you civil rights posters. So just make sure that that civil rights poster is available to all taxpayers who seek services. At my site, we actually put one poster inside the room and one poster outside the room so that the taxpayers can have that available to them both while they're filling out their forms and during tax preparation. So there are EFINs and SIDNs, and quality site requirement number 8 is to use the correct site identification number, and quality site requirement number 9 is to use the correct electronic filing identification number. Those should be provided. By your coordinator, will already be entered into TaxSlayer, and so that the coordinator needs to make sure that the correct numbers are used for the correct sites, and so that they can be reported correctly. All right, the final requirement is security. We do need to follow all of the guidelines outlined in publication 4299. I would encourage you to review publication 4299 to make sure that you are following all of these. It is, first of all, we have to prepare an annual security plan to safeguard taxpayer data. This information is provided to the spec agent by the end of the year. Most of you have probably already done that, but make sure that that gets done by December 31st, which is coming right up here. We need to protect all computers with passwords. Make sure that no information is saved onto a computer that would be available to anyone else. Just make sure that information is deleted. If it is saved on a computer, that it's deleted and then deleted from the delete file. We need to make sure that we are using hardwired internet connection or encrypted and password protected wireless internet connections. At our ISU site, we have hardwired computers. At our other sites around Story and Boone County, we have encrypted and password protected wireless internet connections. So you can use either one of those. You need to secure the computers, printers, and equipment during and after site operating hours. Make sure they're locked up. Make sure that you are storing and disposing of information properly. The private information of the taxpayers, first of all, shouldn't be kept by us, but if you do end up keeping those intake forms, make sure that they are secure and not available to anyone else and that they are disposed of properly. Properly secure the Internal Revenue Code Section 7216 required consent notices. Limit volunteer access privileges to the tax software based on assigned roles. So that means that make sure that your certification level is appropriate and that the access to the software is limited to those people that should be in the roles and have access to it. Generally, we need to restrict volunteer access to the tax software after operating hours and deactivate usernames in the tax software when volunteers quit, resign, or are no longer working at the site. All right, so this concludes the quality site requirement video. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out.